Today's guest is Kenny Batke. He's a hockey coach and mentor and the founder of Prodigy Athletics. But he's not the kind of coach who runs a rink that's full of 100 kids and hopes that a few make it. Kenny works one-on-one, high touch with committed players from about 12 years old who are chasing the top junior leagues and for a few of them, the NHL. Here's why he's on the show for contractors. Kenny doesn't recruit talent, he recruits commitment. Before he'll work with an athlete, they have to apply and take an assessment. And he's not measuring how hard they can shoot a puck. He's measuring whether they'll do the work, take honest feedback, and show up when nobody's watching. Sound like anyone you've ever tried to hire before? He lives by 4 lines, and I want you to hold on to them for the next 45 minutes because they're not about hockey. Action is mandatory, effort is imperative, failure is necessary, and confidence is learned. That last one's the kicker. Confidence is learned. Nobody's born cut out for this, not in his world, and not in ours. So today we're pulling everything that Kenny knows about spotting who's got it and building it in the ones who do, straight back into your shop. Mr. Kenny Batke, welcome to the podcast, man. It's good to have you here.
Thanks for bringing me on.
The reason I wanted to bring you on the podcast, right? You are a coach who helps people make it to the big leagues and improve their game when it comes to hockey. Tell us a little bit about you, man. Like, who are you? Where do you come from? What do you do now?
Yeah, I mean, to keep it brief, I grew up playing hockey. I made the decision when I was, in my mid-teens that I wanted to commit to a scholarship. Really started to change how I viewed the game and what it could provide for me. And then spent the next 5 years pursuing junior into a scholarship, 5 years of college hockey. It was really playing college hockey that I realized like all the resources were there after I'd achieved what I wanted to achieve. And I felt like a huge disparity with how much I had to struggle from when I was 13, 14, really all the way up to 20, to then just having everything after I feel like I didn't really need it anymore. I didn't think of it much at the time, but then 2-3 years after I graduated, it was still kind of nagging me that there was this like dissonance between like what's available versus when you need it. And then dove in as a coach.
Interesting. So that's where you're at today, is now you're helping those guys who are in that same position as you were back as a teenager to see what's coming and help them overcome hurdles.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like when I look back at my life, hockey gave me so much outside of the game, just in terms of how I carry myself, how I communicate, how I perceive challenges and risk, how I navigate and negotiate with the world over what I want. And that's something that I want to instill in these kids and these young men and women. Yeah. I find that, as we become adults, like we start to realize all of our own limiting beliefs, all of our worldviews that have set us up to put us where we are. So why not rewind the clock and just build it right the first time?
I love that, man. That's awesome. Let me ask you this, like, how did you get into hockey in the first place?
I grew up in Canada. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a hockey family, in the sense we were all hockey fans. Having an older sister who was a huge Canucks fan kind of drew me into it, so I was always watching on the TV. And then it was like actually some resistance in my family because, we'd heard it's a pretty political game. It's a pretty expensive game. So I went through my own trials, like from being 5 of like doing skating lessons and then, a couple of years of floor hockey. And it's like, okay, like this kid's wanted to play hockey for like 4 years. He's not going to let it go. It's like, It's like the child that asks for a puppy 300 times, like finally you just cave. So my parents put me in when I was 9 and then just never looked back after that.
Yeah. And that's what I was wondering, especially like we're both fathers, right? We both have kids that are similar age, which is how we met. But finding that I really have to push my daughter into sports to get her to do them. She doesn't naturally want to do them. Were you that kid? Did you have to be pushed, or were you just like born ready to go, like you wanted to pursue it? I
mean, as ready as a 9-year-old can be equipped to be ready. Like I thought I knew what I wanted, and then I get on the ice, I'm way behind, I don't know how to skate, and I just fell apart.
Yeah.
So it was like what I wanted versus what actually happened was a huge difference once I started. But my parents definitely I had the advantage of having them be super supportive and committed once we did commit, of like, hey, this is something you've wanted for 4 years. You can't just quit after day one.
Yeah.
So it was definitely like mix and match. Like I wanted to play a lot of sports, but I definitely had their guidance and support as well to not let me give up on something just because I was emotional.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of parenting and just leadership in general is pushing people through the the parts that are not as comfortable, right? Really pushing people to flourish even though things are uncomfortable or you're feeling like you're behind. And I think this is one thing that really, as I kind of as a father, as a coach, as a leader, as a community member, is always trying to bring people up even though they don't think that that's the right thing or they don't think that that's the thing that they want to do. And we'll get into that in this podcast for sure, but I tend to find that there's people out there who are just born like they're born and they know exactly what they want to do and they just make it happen. Very, very small. And for the rest of us, it's kind of like we just find ourselves in a place and we make the most of it, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that as well, actually, because in the age of social media as well, it's so much easier to find that small minority of a fraction of a percent where it's like they are just batteries included, full clarity and go, and then it's like you play the comparison game against that one thing of that one person's life and think it's like, oh, that's the baseline. I'm way behind.
Yeah, totally. And I think I've got a handful of clients who are going to be listening to this podcast episode and saying, hey, that was me. That was me. I didn't come with batteries included. I had everything stacked against me that I shouldn't be where I am today running a big business. And, I did ask one of my last podcast guests, I said, you've had such a hard go of it growing up. Things have been tough. There was every reason for you to fail, and yet you've still made it. Do you not now feel that you deserve the wealth that comes with running your business, that you deserve to have an easy life? And, I think the biggest thing is overcoming that imposter syndrome. It's like, I don't belong here. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't have what I have. I think there's kids out there that are going to have it easy and there's going to be ones that have it hard. And I think the value of a coach or the quality of a coach is what results can you get when it's the other guy, not the guy that was born ready to go, not the guy that was born with it. Is how can you take someone that wants it but has every reason to fail and help them really achieve that goal. Let's go back to your junior hockey days though. Tell me about like the athlete that was Kenny when you were 12, 13, 14. You said that you had a tough time of it. Break it down. What do you mean by a tough time?
Oh, I mean, so many different no's to touch on. It seemed like almost every year that progressed through my teen years had a different theme with a different challenge to face. It certainly taught me that, life is about challenges and how we manage them rather than just trying to avoid them. But the biggest thing was, after I was 12, I played my first year of rep. Went again when I was 13 and had a terrible year. So moved up a division. So I was playing with older kids, started playing more contact and really I don't want to say I didn't have a good coach. But I wasn't ready for the level of commitment or intensity. And I really shut down when I was 13. So I quit when I was 14 because this is too much for what I want or what I thought I wanted. And then just went back to rec league. Played a year there, hated it, realized that, in my opinion, hockey's not really hockey if you can't hit. So then 15, I was like, okay, you know what? This was kind of my tipping point of I'm going for it. I want to play hockey to go to junior. I want to earn a scholarship. Planting my flag, I'm going for it. And then when I was 15, I didn't even make it out of tryouts without an injury. So hurt my hip right out of tryouts. As soon as I got the email that I made the team, fired an email back of I need time off. I have to go to physio. So that was tough. And then now it was that took me into October. Recovered, came back, my second game back, first weekend, out with another shoulder injury. So it was
man.
Another 8 weeks, come back. We had 2 more games before Christmas break. And my coach was like, don't worry about it. We're not going to play you. Just rest, take another 3 weeks off. Make sure you're ready to come back. And I took that, as an insult. I'm 15. I just spent 11 weeks on the IR, recovering, getting ready. Don't tell me I need another 3 weeks to get ready. So candidly, didn't handle that well. Didn't have the tools, didn't have the support. Really reacted. Went snowboarding the whole break. Like, and then he asked me, and he's like, "Hey, so did you get ready? Did you come back?" And like quipped back, was like, "If you consider snowboarding getting ready, like I'm the most ready on the team right now."
Yeah.
And that didn't go over well. Like, not a shining moment at all. Not something I'm proud of, but something that I did and learned from since. So didn't play. He's like, "Hey, we'll save you for playoffs." Save me for playoffs meant we're just going to find another reason not to play you. And then we were out in 2 games. And that was the end of my season, my 15-year-old season. So it was like the season that I'd committed to coming back, giving it my all, wasn't really a season at all. And then I was like, I would say, very lucky that spring I came across a mentor who saw work ethic, who saw drive and some level of resilience, despite not really having the skill. Like thinking that, I just played a low level of rep, then a year of house, then hadn't played, like developmentally, very far behind. And he was like, "You know what, whatever, come out to these skates. We have some older guys, some better players. Like, if nothing else, it's a good experience." Really started to progress, met some older guys. That mentor ended up becoming my head coach. And that was what really started the flywheel of like cementing belief and opportunity that, okay, there could be something here. Like, I don't know what it is yet. But his son was 4 years older than me. So I kind of got to see it happen in real time as well, of someone going through it. And it was like, okay, like if I stay on this path, like there is opportunity for me ahead. And then fortunately I had him as a winter coach, and then a spring coach, and then a winter coach again. So 2 years. And that was what really started the momentum to get me into junior hockey.
Right. How much of that was the belief in the mentor compared to the coach that you had before? Did you feel like because this guy saw your potential and realized your value that you were more bought in to him as a coach and more willing to do as he said, or the advice that he gave you?
I think that a lot of what resonated with me for him was his belief set that everything you do starts with your inputs. He was very much like, work in, results out. Don't worry about the results out for right now. Like he was all inputs. He was like, I don't want you to think about scores, placements, lineups. He's like, only focus on inputs. And I was like, great. Like, I don't care because I've never had the results. I was like, I could just smash inputs all day. Tell me what to do. So we really did that. It was just having that detachment from outcomes that helped. And I would say he was the first coach that really started to develop my character outside of just the ice. He was the kind of coach where I was like, he doesn't like hats. If you're going to wear a hat, it's not being worn backwards. If it's being worn backwards, it's getting thrown out. Like, respect first, character first, zero tolerance for, engagement or interaction, zero tolerance for like poor sportsmanship or bad penalties. Like, it was very much more like the punishment that we experienced on those teams was all around character, not around performance.
Right.
Like, you could make a mistake and screw up on the ice, no problem. If you slashed a guy or smashed your stick or talked back to the ref, like, that was what got you sat.
Right.
And it was like, those were the values that I could buy into.
And I love that you mentioned that word values, because it sounds like your mentor was extremely clear on values and extremely clear on expectations with conduct. And I think that's where a lot of people, especially in the leadership space or management space, is they fail to realize that the core values are the inputs, right? It is that hard work, it is that integrity, it is that showing up and doing what you said you were going to do, and giving it your all. And that is the inputs. That's a controllable directly in the hands of the person who is showing up. We actually had a guy who sat down with an owner of a $750 million company, and he asked him, he said, what's the one thing? He's like, if I want to go from where I am today, at 4 or 5 million, get close to where you are, he said, the biggest mistake that he made building his business to 750 million was that he didn't focus on core values, and it was all about the outputs. So it's funny how that translates across the space from, not even just construction, but business and leadership into athletics and into, pro level competition, people who are competing at a really high level, core values remain the same message across the board. So thanks for making that connection, because I think that's an important one for sure.
Definitely. Well, I mean, I think that sport is like the safest place to learn about those values.
Interesting.
Like when you think about it, when you get into business, when you get into relationships, family, everything has a cost, right? When it comes to sport, the cost might be losing a game, moving around in a lineup, not getting on the team you want to be on. But like each of those has a lesson within it that you can translate to your higher stakes situations of, business, relationships, life afterwards. That's why I'm a huge advocate for leadership first.
Yeah, 100%. You said that, you developed late into this, right? Obviously you had some injuries and stuff. Walk me through like the hardest stretch, the part where the plan wasn't working out and you had to figure out to keep going anyway. Like you said that you had quit and then you came back and committed. What was it that gave you that kind of drive to come back and commit 100%? Was it that coach and the potential that he saw and buying into the coach, or was that something that happened within yourself?
I think it was a mix of experience, and self, right? Because every decision we have, we're faced with two paths, right? And we can't split test life as much as we want to. You have to experience either both or commit to one and accept that you just won't experience the other. And what I found when I took that year of going back, playing house, really giving up the pursuit of high-level hockey, was I got a first-hand taste of what it would be like to continue on that path. And so it was really the fork in the road, being able to go down a path for a year and say, that is definitely not what I want. I would rather go through the pain, the suffering, like the hard experience of this pursuit than just live that like easy life, like rec league hockey, no hitting, no pursuit, no drive. You can call it an identity thing, but it was really, I think it was just having a taste of the experience and having that taste be so sour that I was at that point willing to do anything to not have it.
Has there been any other times in your career where you've thought, okay, now I want to walk away, or was it just that one time?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, multiple times. It's like, it's a constant problem to solve with anything in life. Like I've faced it in hockey. I now face it in business. I've faced it in my marriage. Like it's, again, like anytime we have uncertainty or adversity, it's like, do we want to face it or do we want to avoid it? And what does that say about us? And anytime I can take a step back and ask myself that question almost in third person, it's like, no, I want to be the type of person who pursues adversity, who pursues uncertainty. So, I mean, to share another experience that was a little bit later was my first year of junior hockey. So I was 17, had just turned 18, and made my first junior team, which is a great milestone. Again, like I didn't know what I didn't know, so I didn't know what to look for with where to go. I just kind of went with the path that was set out for me. And what had happened with that was I just went and played for the junior team that I was called up to the year before. What I didn't know is that junior team was experiencing quite a bit of turmoil and would soon turn into the worst team in the league my rookie year. So I went into a team that, I thought was going to be an amazing experience. Living away from home, playing junior hockey, all of like the rose-colored glasses we think of when we think about making junior. And then I get there and it's full of hazing, full of like senior veterans that don't really care about the team. When we talk about politics, there was two sons on the team who were like sons of the owners, and they pretty much ran the team. Horrible experience. Like every chance I could go home, I was going home. To paint a little bit more of an image, like we won 9 games out of 43, clearly the worst team in the league. Our head coach, like just as a quick context, like you get 40 cards to make a 25-person roster in junior. He'd burned all 40 cards by October. So we couldn't sign any new players. If players quit, that was the roster we were stuck with. We barely had like a 23-person roster. And then that coach was so fed up with the ownership that he left right before Christmas. So we were coachless heading into Christmas break. We had our backup goalie's dad stand on the bench for us so that we could continue to play. And we finished the year with less than 3 lines because so many guys had just quit and walked. So it was like the number of times that I wanted to quit, leave, give up, question myself, like, is this all I've worked for? Is this worth it? It was routine. That was a habit almost.
Yeah.
At that point. So
yeah, it has to become a character trait of pushing through, essentially. I like that. And I mean, I think the word that we're really looking for here is culture, right? Like the word that we're talking about is what does culture look like on a pro team or an aspiring team. Especially in the business world, is culture plays a factor in whether I stay at a business. Is the juice worth the squeeze, or could I go somewhere and have more of an impact faster and be better taken care of? And I think that, you know, with pro sports, sure, I get it, right? But it's limited opportunities. Whereas in the business world, especially with a lot of my clients, is employees have multiple options where it isn't maybe as exclusive as getting into like a junior team, like a junior pro team.
No, that's a great point. It's like, not that it's not possible, but is it worth the trade? Like, look at McDavid, how many years he's gone through trying to take Edmonton to a cup. It's like, how many more years does he have before he goes to another team for a better chance? Or like another player would be Kachuk, like really tried to influence and grow with the Flames, goes to Florida less than 2 years later and has a Stanley Cup ring. Right. So it's like, again, not is it possible or not. It's like, to your point, whether it's employees or teammates, like, is it worth the trade in time and resources for that person in that environment?
Yeah.
And I think that's
100%.
That's the question that we have to ask as leaders and business people.
Absolutely. And you said the word politics, right? You've got a coach who's got a couple of kids on the team. Is your effort gonna outshow them, and is that gonna then cause friction between the coach and you and become a detractor from your overall progress? Potentially. I've definitely walked into businesses in my junior years myself where I've went in and I've been the most gung-ho guy, like coming and giving it everything. And the business or like that company was just not ready for someone like that because they've never had an A player before. Don't want to toot my own horn and say I'm an A player through and through, but I've definitely came in with an A player attitude and then became a D player because that was the environment that I put in, right? Killed the fire. And it's hard to be in an environment with people where the intrinsic values aren't there and it's all on extrinsic values. You can only impact that so much before you burn yourself out and become a D player, right? I think the big lesson is when you walk into a room, you should always be analyzing, am I here with a group of A players who are going to build each other up, or do I have to change my circle, right? Am I in a group of D players? I'm never going to go anywhere. And I think this is why coaching is so effective, having a coach like working with you one-on-one or even in a group setting, because a coach can be the one who sets the standard for that. They can set those expectations that when you walk in here, you uphold the culture rules or the culture laws that we set for this team, because we're all trying to achieve the same goal. And that's really what culture is. It's alignment on a vision, right? Do we have a group or a joint vision that we're all trying to achieve, and we know how our individual behaviors contribute towards achieving that vision or losing that vision?
Just to add to that as well, like I think that the benefit of having a coach or mentor, or however you want to label it, is it holds you to the same standard that you expect of yourself. Because I find oftentimes when we are left to our own devices, regardless of whether we're an A player, B player, or whatever, when we're not held to a standard or like exposed to objective metrics, it's very easy for us to rationalize and be like, well, that's okay for this time or that time or this circumstance. And then like that culture bleeds without us seeing it. And then we wonder, like, what happened to my team? Why are they, lazy, not performing, not motivated? And it's like, well, it started with us slipping and not realizing our own shortcomings.
You're totally correct. 100% correct. Yeah. You talk about belief, structure, and relentless effort as 3 things that carried you personally. Which one did you have the least of at the start, and then how did you end up building it?
I think I lacked structure at the start. because I just didn't know. It was purely ignorance. I would see other people doing other things, like, going to stick and pucks or training off the ice or things like that. But I didn't know really like what that looked like or how to start. And it was that not knowing that really I felt prevented me from starting. Right. So it was like I had effort and I had, what belief I could manage. Right. Again, like, it's easy to believe anything when you're ignorant. But like I knew that I could work hard. I just didn't know what to work hard at. And that was like a really big block for me. So, how did I manage that? This is where luck becomes more of the journey. Like being part of that spring camp, I was around other players that were trading off the ice, that were getting extra ice times. And I saw it not firsthand, but secondhand through them of like, okay, these are some more of the inputs that I can start to stack. And then it was like, I saw enough of that to get into a good environment, be surrounded by others who were doing it regularly, where it became a normal thing, that it helped get me to my next environment of junior. And it was like, despite having that rough first year, it was the second year we had new owners, more structure, more coaching. It was like, and I got another taste of higher standards, more structure, higher expectations, like better development. And was in that environment for 2 years, and that got me into enough development to get my scholarship. And then it was like, and that was when my eyes really opened. I was like, oh, like this is what it looks like. So it's like I really kind of limped along, just getting enough structure to get to the next level, up to university. And then university was where it just like blew the doors off and like totally changed my mind and opened my eyes about like what good looks like and what proper structure and high standards are.
It sounds to me like you put yourself in rooms with highly effective people and tried to mimic somewhat what they were doing.
It's interesting you say that, because I would say I happen to be in rooms with highly effective people. It wasn't until my later years that I became aware of it, that was something that was an influential factor, and then started to put myself in those rooms, or try to put myself in those rooms. And that was something that I learned more, I would say more through business than hockey.
Really?
Like, get it? Like, I knew from hockey that environment mattered. I knew that translating it to business, like that I wasn't going to have the same, call it convenient opportunities that I had in sport, of just being like placed in that room.
They say that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
I've heard that quote many times, and I've heard it modified in a way that I resonate more with. So one of the modifications that I heard is, you're the average of the 5 people you compare yourself to the most.
I like that.
And I love that because it takes away borders of who you spend time with, and then becomes, who you compare yourself to, because then you can pick all 5 people to be somewhere where you are not yet that you want to get to.
Right.
And you can compare yourself to people that you haven't necessarily met yet, which is a huge advantage in an online world.
I love that, dude. I think that's an amazing change up there of that quote. As long as it's within moderation and you're not comparing yourself to like Jeff Bezos or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think if, again, come back to that saying, right? If the 5 people you maybe we should change it to, you're the average of the 5 people that you take the most influence from, right? Or that you aspire to be almost. But I think it's important as well to also recognize that you're number 5 in somebody else's story, in your team's story, right? There's someone on the team that's number 5, and I think that comes with some sort of responsibility.
What I like about it is when you think about who you're comparing yourself to, you can always pick 5 other people who are ahead of you, right? And it just fosters that growth mindset. Something to be careful with is that if you are always in pursuit, always living in the gap, never in the gain, can be a fruitless journey, and easy to lose motivation over time. So absolutely agree. Like, worth the time to smell the roses, recognize that it may not feel like it if you have imposter syndrome, but that you are someone else's 5, and you can always have a rotating 5 where you're never there yet. right? Because I mean, I feel like a lot of the people who are going to listen to this or see this, like, are, you know, value driven, high pursuit people.
Yeah.
So
I think
do
you
need
touch on
both.
something interesting as well about if you're feeling like you are number 5, maybe it's time to change the room that you're standing in or change the circle that you're standing in, having that rotating 5. And it makes me think of a client that, you know, when I started with him almost 3 years ago now, you know, was just like everybody else, you know, had just started out, was trying to find his feet, made a ton of mistakes, and then last week I watched him give an expert presentation on a stage for his industry, you know, at one of the biggest shows for his industry. And everyone's asking him, how did you do it? How did you make it happen? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't belong to be here. You know, the imposter syndrome never really goes away completely. But, you know, I think of him and I say to this to him all the time, I say, you deserve to be here. You've worked hard to be here. You're just not done yet. And we've developed this saying that we say is like, today is day one. Every day, today is day one. It's
Seeing that growth, though, how does that make you feel as a coach?
It makes me feel incredible. I mean, I think at the end of the day is being an entrepreneur myself, I never feel like I've done enough. You know, I never feel like I'm there. And I think that's a good thing and it's a trap. We talk about the entrepreneur brain. The entrepreneur brain never lets you get comfortable. It never lets you feel like you've won. And that's a good thing because it keeps you in that relentless pursuit of your vision and your goals. But at the same time, it never gives you an opportunity to really appreciate or celebrate the achievements that you've actually achieved. And so I think you do need to find balance with that. I can't look at a client and say, hey, look what we did, we're done, because we'll never really be done, you know? And that's not on a revenue amount, it's not on a profit amount or anything like that, but it's have you grown as a person as being in part of this program with us and with our circle? And are you influencing others around you to do the same? It's more of a metric on, you know, are you showing up and putting the work in, you know? And you're going to get like you said, it's the inputs. So if I can get someone to put the inputs in and keep believing that when they put those inputs in, they get a lot back later on, that's the metric, you know? Now, there might be people who are listening to this podcast and say, well, how is that when you're not measuring the outputs? We do. We absolutely do. We just let them organically flow after the inputs have been put in, you know? But yeah, it makes me incredibly proud. I'm incredibly lucky to be in a place where there's not a single person that I work with that, you know, I'm not their biggest fan.
No, I think you touched on something that's important that I think about often when I bring in athletes is I always think about their vision and then my vision for them. And if my vision for them is not at least a little bit larger or a lot larger than theirs for themselves, they don't really need me as a coach. Right? Like if their vision expands beyond mine for them, I'm just holding them back. So like I have to be very intentional and relentless about where they're at and be that leader or that coach or mentor or whatever the label is of like continuing to expand their vision of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Give me the interview question when you're sitting across that Zoom call or you're sitting across the room from someone and you're trying to get an essence of that insecurity or that weakness, you know, or that perceived weakness. What's the question you ask?
I don't necessarily have a question in terms of like trying to get to know athletes. I want them to share as much of their story as they can. And I don't know if this translates to interviews, but at least working with teenagers, when they can tell stories and share stories, they give a lot more natural answers.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just my job to pick up on that. So I'm usually looking for something about, you know, if they were injured, if they didn't make a team, if they had disagreements with a coach. I guess just like a brief example of an injury, like kind of a language flip is like, this guy broke my finger versus like my finger got broken. Or like this coach cut me versus like, I didn't make the team. Right? Like, do people have personal vendettas against you, all over the place? Or is it just an event that happened that, you know, didn't affect you in a positive way?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we do resonate and we do something very similar in that process where I'll always start an interview with, tell me about a time when. and I'll insert the blank, right? Tell me about a time where you got caught from a team. Tell me about a time where you went above and beyond for a customer. Tell me about a time where you really had to step into a leadership position, even though it wasn't your job to do so. And I find that those questions are way more valuable than just checking boxes on a script, in an interview for people. And I think that's where real talent really shows up in the answer. But you have to learn how to listen. You have to learn how to pick between that and understand the core values that come from those answers. So
yeah, I think to add one more thing, or maybe two more things to that, is when they start to share stories, if you find something that, does sound like, maybe a bit of ego or some limiting belief, or something that really kind of tweaks your radar of like, I don't know if that's the right fit. Like, one thing that I've adopted that's worked really well is challenging them on it and saying like, did this happen or could it have been this? And then seeing how they respond. Because they're like, no, it was for sure this. It's like, got it, not the right one.
Gotcha. I think that's one of the big factors in what makes a good coach and not a good coach, is being able to have that conversation and say, you're not trending towards that goal right now. And I think there is a little bit of self-preservation included in that as well, where you don't want to necessarily bank your skills as a coach or a mentor on someone who's not going to achieve and drive down your results, right? But I think a good leader can and will have those conversations. And that's the thing that a lot of our guys or people who are in the construction world fail to do. They don't want to have that conversation because they're so scared of losing that person on their team. And that holds them back from being able to really optimize their talent that they have on the team. Sometimes people need that and they take that really well. I've been told countless times, hey, like, you're never going to achieve that goal if you keep behaving this way or that way or this way. And I find that to be a driver. And I think the key lesson is to push people to have those conversations with your team members. If you know that they're not performing, get in and have the hard conversation.
I think there's a lot to be said about how you have the conversation as well, for how it goes in terms of like how you frame it, right? Is it adversarial? Is it me versus you? Or is it like me and you versus this goal? I think people are a lot more responsive when they feel like they're on the same side of the table and working towards something rather than just being called out for falling short.
Right. Kenny, I want to come back to something that you said to me when we were doing our discovery call to set up this podcast. You said, if you do what they do, you get what they get. That one really stuck. And can you break that down, like, for the guys who are listening? What does that mean? If you do what they do, you get what they get.
It comes down to like inputs and outputs. I have a science background, so even like experiments, right? Like if you put in, just use baking as an example, like if you put in the same ingredients, bake it the same way, there's a pretty reliable outcome that you'll get the same thing every time, right? So like if you do what other people are doing, you will get what other people are getting. And that can be what you're doing as much as it can be what you're not doing. I think that where people struggle is that they do the same things and expect different results, either positive or negative based on, circumstances or beliefs. But I always like to pull that back into like, what can we control? What can we influence? And really just drive it to inputs, right? Like, yes, outside influence will play a factor. Circumstances will play a factor. Luck will play a factor. But none of those factors should affect or influence how we show up for our inputs. And I think it's a really freeing concept that it's like, okay, if I do more, I can expect better results. And again, I think it strips away the idea that people are special or that people get results without having to work for them. Because those, like, fundamentally, those are beliefs that don't serve us. Helps really bridge an understanding between people who get results. Right. Like the more time I spend in different domains, whether it's sports or business, the more I think that it all comes down to inputs. Like, what are the right inputs? How many of them can we do? Why can we, like, what's stopping us from doing more? That's a really freeing concept, because then it's like, it all falls on us. And it gives us a better appreciation for the people who do make it, the people who do succeed, rather than having that sour taste in our mouth of like, they had it lucky. They knew this guy. They paid this guy. It's like, if we go back to just the single sentence of if you do what they do, you'll get what they get, it helps us appreciate successful people, and it gives us responsibility that, our results are up to our own inputs.
Yeah. I was fine with that question specifically. If I was asking, well, if I want to do more than what they do, how do I decide what to do?
That's an interesting question, because again, not all hard work is important. Not all important work is hard, right? So sometimes the important work is figuring out what to do. Is discernment of what the next steps are, right? As much as it is like smashing the inputs, there's a level of work to understanding what those inputs should be. Right. To use a simple example of like, if there's a hockey athlete, he's a great shooter, scores a lot of goals with his shot, and is very slow and falling behind and is getting fewer of those opportunities to use that shot, it doesn't make sense for him to just continue practicing his shot. Right? Those are no longer fruitful inputs. Now we need to become a better skater. So step one is like finding what the inputs are. Step two is to driving the inputs home until we're at another constraint where the inputs become different.
Right. It reminds me of the E-myth, the entrepreneur brain, the manager brain, and the technician brain. And the technician brain is the one that just keeps achieving you what you've already got. It's the day-to-day, it's the reps, it's the routines, it's the process. The manager brain is the one that's always looking back in the past and measuring where we've came from and results from prior decisions. And then the entrepreneur brain is the crazy vision guy who says, here's where I'm trying to go. It's wacky, it's crazy, but I'm going to give it to the manager to make it happen. And then the technician to follow through. And I think that's kind of similar. The deciding what to do, the researching what to do is the entrepreneur. The manager is constantly measuring how we're showing up right now. And then the technician is just doing the thing. They're just doing the task. I want to start winding things down, Kenny. I want to kind of close on your message to people, not just hockey players, but people in general who are leaders. What's something that you think most people miss when it comes to leadership, or what's your message to leaders out there? What would your advice be?
I think that often we need to hold the same standards for ourselves as we do others. What comes with that is we need objective ways to measure. And I think it's important to have multiple ways to win. Right? So what I like with your stretch goal and your BHAG is like you have 3 different revenue points where all of them are successful.
Yeah.
But I think beyond that is having more ways to win of like what is success beyond just revenue. And that's why I like the concept of your F wheel as well, where it's like having more ways to win keeps us motivated when maybe a certain piece isn't necessarily going as well as we want it to. But what are leaders missing? I think if I were to put one thing that I've seen across my own work experience, across my own life experience to this point, is that people don't track enough things. People don't actually measure enough things to know if they're doing well or not. And that can be a dangerous game relying on how you feel for the day. So finding more ways to win and finding more ways to measure. And that's coupled by what gets measured gets managed.
Yeah, I love that. Another one of my favorite scenes, right? What gets measured, get managed. I like that. Yeah. This has been gold, man, and I mean, we didn't get into as many questions as I really wanted to get to, but I mean, we don't have to let this be the only time that you're on the podcast. I'm sure we'll have you back at some point.
I appreciate that. I just talk too much.
No, dude, it's good. It's all gold. There's tons here. But yeah, like I said, this was gold for parents, for business owners, for aspiring hockey players, like people who listen who want to do, who want to do their best, who want to give themselves a real shot, and they're on the fence about hiring a coach. What would your message be to them? Someone who's on the fence, who's wondering, how does a coach really benefit my hockey journey, my business, my family life, my time back?
I think it's necessary to start this with like a bit of a story, actually, because every time in my life that I've hired a coach, whatever metric I hired that coach for, it was about 8 weeks before that metric was like insanely successful. Like I hired a fitness coach last fall because we went through a stressful move, gained a bunch of weight, and like I lost like 13 pounds in 6 weeks, which I mean, I'm in okay shape. So like 13 pounds is a lot to lose. Hired a business coach in December. January was a record month. And like, it was like a 3x record month. It wasn't like a little bit, or like 3x the previous. It was crazy. But I mean, the value of a coach is that secondary unbiased opinion, is that structure that you can be held accountable to and supported within, that can be tough or tricky to set up yourself if you haven't really done it before, and can also be that's a like guiding light of like, remember your vision, remember what you committed to walk you off the ledge when things get emotional, because like we are incredibly emotional creatures across all domains. Without having that steadfast, like unbiased guide, it could be very difficult to navigate. And we burn more emotional capacity than we want to, and we burn more time than sometimes we can afford.
Yeah, I would agree, man. I would totally agree. I love that. So let's wrap up here, man. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, connect with us on Instagram at prodigyaathletics.hockey, YouTube, prodigyaathletics.hockey, or my personal Instagram is at Kenny Batke, but mostly Instagram and YouTube would be the best ways to connect. And
Kenny actually makes some really, really good content. So if you're listening to this and you're looking for transferable content between, hockey and athletics and being a good leader, it all shows up on Kenny's Instagram. He posts every single day. Is it every day still? Give or take?
Pretty close, yeah.
Pretty close. Go follow him. We'll have him back on the podcast at some point. So here's why I brought a hockey coach onto a contracting show. Everything Kenny just said, screening for commitment over talent, doing what the best do instead of what's easy, building the leader first, and that last one, getting a coach instead of grinding it out alone in the garage, that's not a hockey problem. That's the exact problem sitting in your shop right now. So here's the ask. We just opened up a new group coaching cohort, a 3-part program built for cabinet makers and GCs, chaos to control, control to prosperity, prosperity to freedom, in that order because you can't skip steps. Kenny would tell you the same thing about the Phase 1 Foundation. Founding member spots are capped at 10 shops and no more, and just like Kenny, I'm screening for commitment. Not just anyone who can pay. If you're the kind of operator who's ready to do what the best do on purpose every day, then this is for you. If you're looking for a magic trick, it's not. The link's below, 10 spots, let's build the leader, the business follows. Kenny, thanks for coming on the show, and we'll see you on the next one.
Appreciate you having me on, Lee. Thanks so much.